You're listening to Rookie Pirate Radio, the official anime and manga podcast for InBetweenDrafts.com. I'm John Negroni.
And I'm Travis Imus.
And today we're doing a manga recap of One Piece chapter 1142, titled, What I'm Afraid Of. And Travis, that's too easy. We all know what I'm afraid of. The end of One Piece. You know why? We won't have a reason to podcast together anymore.
We could figure it out. I'm sure we could do like the Ace manga or something for a week.
That would take like a week, yes. Oh, you mean the Ace light novels?
No, they've got a manga version of it too.
There's a manga version too? Oh, I gotta check that out. Anyway, as usual.
It's not out yet, but...
I see. As usual, we're going to be discussing spoilers for the One Piece manga up until this point. So if you've not yet read One Piece 1142, be sure to do so now for free on the Viz website or the Shonen Jump app, linked in the show notes as always. Remember, all new One Piece chapters are available to read for free up to 3 weeks after their official release whenever you want if you are subscribed to Shonen Jump, which we are and do recommend. Now, Travis, as usual, this is the part of the show where I hype up the Discord. Everybody loves the Discord. It's where, friends become best friends. But I do want to hype up our email a little extra special today. Because yes, the Discord's in the show notes. Everybody knows that. But the email, rookiepiratradio@gmail.com, is where you can send us emails. And we got such a lovely email. I opened it right before the beginning of the show. This is how, because we have like a little studio room where Travis like walks in, into this thing virtually, totally like, not knowing what to expect. He's forever. And he goes in and he sees me jamming out to a Rookie Pirate Radio song that somebody sent us called Sailing with the Rookies. And so I was playing that for just a little private concert for Travis. So keep them going.
And it's a bop. Yeah, I came right in and just started bobbing my head.
Yeah. He was just he was sailing right along with the Rookies right there, actually. So if you want us to do original music for an episode, we might do that one of these days. But yes, rookiepiratradio@gmail.com. Don't forget to get your parents' permission before you email us. All right, Travis H. 1142. What's going on with this cover story?
Well, we are actually continuing the Ogre Child Yamato's Golden Harvest Surrogate Pilgrimage. We're on volume 28. Again, they said we couldn't do it, but here we are. And Yamato actually appears this time. Yamato, she's seen enough. It's time to get involved. So she attacks Who's Who with her iconic Thunder Bagua attack. Iconic for, of course, stealing it from Kaido. And just defeats him, one-shots him. Bagua? Bagua? Is that it? No. I stand correct.
I thought you were doing a joke.
But nonetheless, no, I was not doing a joke. But thank you for correcting me. That said, it is a one-shot. It is. That's why I don't know how to say it. But it is a one-shot, and of course Yamato is more interested in taking back the sword that was stolen and all of the kidnapped women. I assume also maybe the kidnapped carpenter, but, less important. And yeah, it's very impactful, just a good old-fashioned smack. And this is where I think we're about to find out if Yamato's getting some vassals, if you know what I mean.
Right. Well, what's interesting about this moment, too, is this kind of mirrors the scene where Yamato comes in and saves Luffy when he was fighting Ulti. And now it's kind of reversed where Yamato is now saving Ulti.
Now saving Ulti, right?
Yeah, so it's kind of a funny way, the twist of events there. And yeah, Yamato was like just kind of like watching. This is definitely, the power scalers, of course, had their fun, evaluating this 24 hours a day since it came out. They're like, what does this mean? Because Jinbei was able to defeat Who's Who, but it was kind of a struggle, but not really. But then Yamato came in and one-shot him, and first of all, we don't know if he's down for the count. He maybe is, maybe he's not. It's a surprise attack, too.
Also true, he's been lounging, he's been drinking, he's not at the top of his game, right?
I mean, he was technically lounging and drinking when the raid happened, but I guess not right before. But I mean...
Details.
All right, well, let's recap the chapter.
Yeah, I was going to say, I do think, too, that Jinbei is a lot less instant aggression of a fighter than most other characters. So there is this idea that, like, he's not just going to one-shot somebody. That's not really his game.
I hear you on that, yeah. Okay, let's talk about 1142. Again, it's called What I'm Afraid Of. And so, yeah, Elbaf is turning into a bit of a horror show. We start here at the Walrus School. And the kids, the giant kids there, are starting to freak out because there's this huge snake making pun jokes, but also it's coming like straight out of like Norse nightmares. It shows up, it starts wrecking the school. Turns out it's Jormungandr, which is like, I guess, yeah, a Norse thing that I'm not as familiar with. I did play Assassin's Creed Vikings, but that only made me less aware of how Norse stuff works, for being honest. So yeah, the teachers are panicking. We get more of a glimpse at the teachers. We see Kiba. Kiba grabs a hammer, and then he and Saul team up to take the snake down. Make pretty short work of it. More puns and cool guys being cool, that kind of thing. And then we cut to seeing a bunch of the kids are actually starting to sleepwalk. It looks like they're sleepwalking off of a cliff, basically, thanks to what's revealed as some kind of fear magic coming from the Holy Knights. And this is making them all see their personal nightmares come to life. And that the cancellation of Rookie Pirate Radio is one of them, of course. But also almost as serious, Fenrir. There's a bunch of stormy stuff. There's even like a dark Nika at one point. We get a quick explanation for why. It's just like one of the kids is like, oh, look, Nika's going to destroy the world. And then Ange, one of the teachers, realizes that these kids, these creatures, are literally from the kids' art class, because the monsters are apparently like dream fueled. So they're being dreamed up by the sleepwalking kids. There is a twisted version of like what the kids fear the most assignment, but turned real. And so now the kids are marching toward a ship, and it looks like they are totally possessed. So it's like a Pied Piper kind of thing as well. Back in the underworld, though, we do check in on Loki and Luffy and Zoro and Sanji and them. Loki is flexing right now on Luffy and Zoro. He basically says like, what's one little sea stone shackle? That's not going to stop me from, causing a whole bunch of havoc and destruction on the island. It looks like he's, like doesn't care about Elbaf at all and wants to destroy it. So the Loki truthers are having a hard time with that, I'm sure. But then he calls down a bolt of lightning on the entire tree and kind of teases that that's like the thing that Elbaf is really weak against, which is very interesting. By the way, who called that this was a hammer? Who called lightning? Who did do that, Travis? Who called that on the last chapter? Who did that?
I mean, we all kind of did, right?
Oh, I see. Rewriting history.
I mean, a collective. I mean, it was kind of the most obvious answer, right? That this is a little bit of a column A with Ragnarok, a little bit of column B with like Mjolnir and all that. Like, come on, it's obvious.
John doesn't get a win yet again.
John doesn't get a win. I'm denying you this one. I do also want to push back on your agenda here a little bit. He specifically says, if you want to save Elbaf, you have to undo this cuff.
Right.
So, I mean, he cares a little bit.
No, but he's using Elbaf as like a hostage thing, and then he actually causes some destruction. So, I'm not saying that he's, I'm not calling out like Loki is going to be pure evil and not going to be misunderstood and that stuff, but I do think we can all fairly admit the guy is violent and dangerous. Like, he's proven that over and over again. And in response, of course, we go back. Well, actually, we don't get the direct response to that yet. We go back to the Gods Knights, and they're kind of like watching all of this stuff happen with the big beasts and everything. And they're looking pretty smug. And Summers drops this like kind of weird line about love and pain and fear and power. And then the chapter ends with him asking Gunko what she fears the most. And she says, Nika. So it's kind of an interesting way to end the whole thing. I was kind of surprised that it ended that way, quite honestly, because it felt a little bit like, okay, are we teasing that like Gunko is going to be like, we're going to get a lot of Gunko here in terms of character? Like, are we setting up, for example, some kind of big backstory thing for Gunko? Maybe not like, Kuma levels, but just in terms of like, oh, maybe this is going to be our kind of interesting character of the week or the month or whatever.
I've heard it posited, and I don't buy into this, but I would find it entertaining if it turns out that, like, not the Gorosei are a satellite of Emu, but just Gunko is, because she's the one that kind of stands out for multiple reasons.
As a satellite?
I don't know why. Yeah, as like a satellite type thing, which I don't buy for a bunch of reasons, but I do find it an interesting idea. Just because she's been singled out like this multiple times.
There's plenty of rumors and hearsay. I think we might have addressed at one point that she's Revolutionary Army because of her headgear. It looks a lot like the kind of stuff that they wear. There's that whole theory. I think somebody shared in Discord. It might have been John Agroni, where I actually don't remember who it was, but the whole theory of like the reason they wear headgear, like the goggles, it looks like aviator stuff. It's because it's a foreshadowing that the Revolutionary Army is going to be bringing in like air travel to the world of One Piece, save the world from drowning and stuff. But it's like with all things, it's just like loose theorizing. Nothing. We don't have anything specific except she kind of looks like Sheik from Legend of Zelda, aka Zelda.
Yeah. It's one of those things where at this point we have to pay more attention to her, but we're not sure why.
Yeah. Otis saying like Shamrock's gone. Who cares about Shamrock? Now it's the Gunko show.
He's still got a lot of work to do to make that worth it, because we've been waiting for the Shamrock show for a while.
And it's interesting because she's not a saint, right?
No. Well, so, they haven't said we talked about, that's what's weird.
Yeah. And so she's like maybe like one of the celestial dragons who wasn't really a celestial dragon. Her name translates to army child. And so we could maybe take that in as like maybe she was like a child soldier or something, And so maybe like the newsboy cap and the goggles, hey, maybe instead of secretly being Revolutionary Army, she betrayed the Revolutionary Army, like used to be one of them and now isn't. That would be different. We haven't seen that.
That would be different.
Yeah,
that would be something different. That would feed into this fear of Nika, like as a destroyer type, right?
A destroyer, especially. She was ruthless against Loki. Clearly she's got the skills. She took down some giants without blinking. But I am still really curious about her psychologically too. Like we're watching Summers and Killingham. They're using like these fear-based abilities to like manipulate the kids. It makes me wonder like what Gunko is thinking about all this stuff. And if maybe like the Nika thing is something like if she fears Nika because she knows about Nika, because she knows the history of the world, maybe she was radicalized, but she's so afraid of like the end of the world through Nika that makes her want to work with the world government almost like begrudgingly. So there might be like a moral complexity there, like something like deeper going on.
Well, that plays into the idea that we've been looking at in this arc as well, of these different perspectives of what Nika even is. We still think when we talk about it generally, we're really referring to Luffy. But this is a perspective game, right? If Gunko really is just someone who's been either indoctrinated into or has grown up in the Holy Land for whatever reason, and instead of seeing Nika as a liberator, she perceives him as a destroyer, maybe even like the Great Destroyer. We have the Harley as a reference point. There is this idea that just like how one of these kids is terrified of Nika because that their interpretation of the Harley involves Nika being kind of like the harbinger of destruction, whether that's because of Loki or not. It's kind of that same thing and that's why she is the way that she is like, we have to prevent this from happening at all costs. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I'm not sure either. Yeah. And there's that theory that's gone around that Nika is like another version of one of the ancient weapons, like the idea that it's either one of the ancient weapons or like almost like a separate one we haven't heard of yet that could still be linked,
like a fourth one
to the Void Century. Yeah, just something that would kind of like that was maybe used or that maybe came in at the last minute, and it's the one because I could understand then all the confusion around people fearing Nika as a destroyer if Nika's like a manifestation of some kind of power like that. But
I could buy that. I could buy that, like, because they wanted to erase that information so much, we ended up with, through the telephone game, 3 ancient weapons and not 4. That seems feasible.
There's that other theory about Nika being connected to the moon tribes because they're the sun god. And so the moon is like reflecting the sun's light. The moon controls the tides. We're dealing with a story where tides are about to flood the world. And we also have that can connect with the theory, I guess, of like the D clan literally being the moon clan. The D would be like the half moon. So there's like, it's all circumstantial evidence, Travis. Like I have the chartboard here. I have the string, but I can't put it together, Travis. And I'm tired of it.
It's so wild because we've been able to piece together a lot of this story, right? And we've gotten more pieces in the past 12 months, despite the less chapters a year we've been getting. There's been so much information in them. And yet it feels like we know less today than we did before. We have so much more info, but it's almost like the beginning of the Grand Line again, where like the world has opened up in ways we couldn't even begin to perceive, and anything could happen.
Yes. Yeah. So not to jump off that train, but I do want to get into Loki a bit here. So I had a couple questions for you, Travis. First question. The Sea Stone Shackle and the Ragnir thing. Do you think the shackle is limiting his power there? Like, how do you perceive this?
He's acting like it's not. And he's
Loki. It could be all bluff.
50-50 shot. It could be all bluff. 50-50 shot on that. Regardless, this hammer definitely has some sort of power. I know last week we talked about, is that the devil fruit instead of Loki having it? That begs a whole bunch of different questions. But I still think that that's possible. We could be dealing with two devil fruits here.
Yeah, because he is like weakened by the sea stone. Like, that's established.
Yeah.
But no, you brought up my second question then, actually. The second question is, can he channel fire and lightning through Ragnir naturally? Or do you think it's some kind of like environmental trick? You know, like almost like pulling a Nami in a certain sense.
There's definitely something to it. I don't want to just ascribe a devil fruit power to it, because we've got that cuff kind of throwing things off, and it doesn't seem like he feels strong enough to remove that on his own. So we floated the idea of this being some kind of legendary weapon in and of itself, maybe not an ancient weapon necessarily, but maybe some leftover technology that's just been passed down in Elbaf, not fully understanding what they have in their hands. And maybe the Nami connection is closer than we think it. It's actually supposed to be some sort of like weather device, not necessarily a weapon at all.
That'd be a very Oda thing, you know? And I've seen plenty of theories about like, Ragnir could be alive. It could be like some kind of Zoan fruit, like a sentient one, and like have a devil fruit of its own. It could be an extension of his devil fruit, like just enough, like he might have just enough power to activate it, but I don't know. Like, it would be kind of cool if like his hammer was like a devil fruit hammer that was like Thor model, but he's Loki, so it's like both characters is one. I don't know. It'd be a little bit different.
It does kind of seem like he's both characters, though, in certain respects, right? Like, you would have think Hadrudin would have been the more Thor type character, but it doesn't really seem that way.
Other thing I was thinking about, because so it's metal, right? But we didn't get the best look at it. But if it has some kind of like, we see like it has some kind of hilt. So if it was forged maybe from the Atom Tree, but instead of the Atom Tree, like in the Sun world, if it was forged from like the bottom, like the underworld, like I wonder if that could explain like why the Atom Tree is uniquely weak to it, because its power is like literally channeling the tree itself. And so the tree, it's like almost like a counter element, if that makes sense, like something that's been corrupted that he could be using.
So you're saying that not only is it just like the literal reality of a tree catching fire, that there's some extra property making it extra vulnerable?
Yeah, because it's a powerful tree. I think that the tree itself is probably very resistant to things like lightning and fire. Otherwise, the whole island would just go up in flames. It's warland. I'm sure there have been accidents. So
that's a good point.
To me, it would make sense that its weakness would be itself, then, something as powerful as it.
That's a really good point, actually. Thinking about it, the size of this tree kind of does indicate that it might be some form of a lightning rod, right? Like, we don't know how the weather works on Elbaf, all the time, but it has like at least two different climates on its own. So, there's a chance that lightning is going to strike, right? Especially with it so high.
I did see there was one. I'm going to butcher this, but I did see one theory out there. I think it was on Reddit, where people were wondering if the hammer is fueled by fear. So because all the fear that's happening on the island right now, that would explain like why he was able to break himself out so randomly and also be able to use the hammer. And so it's kind of been set up, but it would be kind of interesting, like for Loki, like the more fear and desperation there is on the island, the easier it is for him to like build power. So that could explain why there's all this like education going around. Like the younger giants, it's like, oh, don't be brutal, don't do any of this crazy stuff, because they want to keep Loki at bay. Maybe, I'm not sure. Why didn't they kill Loki?
I like
again?
this.
Sorry.
I mean, so Shanks hauled him in, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so like it's not like he put his thumb on the scale, right? There's no indication of like gratitude on Loki's part. Is it just sentimentality? Do they not have something that can kill him? We talked about him being possibly a Logia user. Can they not kill him? But then Sea Stone cuffs,
shackles on him. They would, yeah. Or they could just drown him.
So that's interesting. Is it?
Yeah.
That's interesting. That I like this fear idea that you brought up though, because that seems to be where we're pivoting theme wise. Not we have the child's fears, we have the kind of concept that like real strength is being able to face your fears rather than not having any kind of fear. We've seen several fears of the giants at this point, and of course this is an arc where we expect Usopp to have. Yeah, it ties together that like this concept of overcoming fear. The Ragnarok story, the myth, in a lot of ways parallels what's happening in One Piece in general. Things like floods and this talk of fire and serpents and things like that. We've theorized, the giant serpent being the red line. It's very clear that we're supposed to be seeing these parallels. So it could even be, now that we've established what the end of the world is kind of heading to in this story, now we have to talk about what it takes to confront that. Maybe that's a piece of where we're going. And a fear power would play into that really well.
Yeah. Yeah, I did want to take it one step further because I did see that theory kind of floating, and I was like, all right, well then where does that fear come from? Like, what's actually powering it then? What's like the impetus for it? And one thing that's still out there as a possibility is the concept of Elbaf's gods, right? We still don't have a total understanding of how that stuff works, like the sun, if there is some kind of divine power on this island that's kind of mysterious and that can be tapped into for some reason, I could totally see it playing into the story. But I also do like the idea of like the gods thing being totally metaphorical, totally abstract, like not something that's like directly or like obviously powerful on the island. Because I do think it would be more Oda for him to play that up more as like a suggestive faith thing. But at the same time, the giants are all believers. Like we haven't seen any like giant atheists yet, as far as I understand. I think the closest we would possibly get would be Road, who kind of sees it as a game, or maybe like he doesn't really believe in it. He's just cosplaying. But other than that,
I would say maybe Saul, just because he's not like native to this region as a giant.
Right.
Maybe that. But even then, he's never expressed anything so explicit.
Mm-hmm.
That's rather that just he hasn't said anything.
Exactly. I did have a question about the children's nightmares. So coming off the hammer here.
Yeah.
Do you think these are like real projections and illusions, like with some kind of solidification? Because I know the serpent kind of was doing stuff, but like how tangible do you think these things are?
I think they're tangible. I think that's what makes them different than other things that we've seen before. These are fears given shape. I don't think this is like an illusion or anything. We saw Saul having to use armament hockey to strike it. We know Tusk, who is a former member of the Giant Warrior Pirates, also physically struck it. Hockey. So, well, to me, that's a pretty strong argument for this being somehow these have been manifested similar to maybe the homies, where they've been given life somehow. And so they exist in a physical realm until it's canceled out by something. It's not impossible.
Sure. Well, here's why I bring this up, Travis. I put you in a little trap. I call it Jonathan traps. And this Jonathan trap is me trying to theorize and posit, maybe perhaps, where else have we heard about this idea of how belief can shape reality? That's right, the devil fruits. And this is a power coming straight from holy knights.
Okay.
And therefore, I'm seeing a connection here between this idea of turning a belief, such as like fear, into something tangible and powerful. That's like a one-to-one with how devil fruits theoretically work with Vegapunk. Yeah?
Okay. I see where you're going with this. So
I know I just threw the meat on the pan, but you may want to season it a little bit.
Yeah. So what you're saying, if I'm following right, is that we're still not dealing with devil fruits when it comes to these guys. Gunko, yes, because we have.
Or we're dealing with the most primal version of it.
Okay.
The purest form of it.
I thought you were heading towards like that origin point where like at some point there's a devil who did this.
Like we're drawing from that same source of like the concept of being able to make something real out of imagination. It's something we see in Nika. Okay. It's something we see in Joy Boy too, obviously.
But well, I would say like Big Mom, right? I mean, she's
well, she puts her soul into things.
Yeah, to give it like to create something that wasn't there before, right? Like Zeus is a separate entity, right?
Yes.
So I'm just saying that kind of plays into this idea that maybe we are heading towards that origin point that you're talking about, and that's why their powers are so much more powerful.
And it's the same kind of thing with Bonnie. Bonnie's still around, waiting to join the Straw Hats and all, but Bonnie straight up was imagining herself as Nika. That's how her power kind of manifested, even though it kind of broke so many rules. So I'm just putting it out there, Travis H. We'll see how wrong I am later.
It's definitely interesting because I would even say that this sets up a pretty good situation where Bonnie actually fights Gunko with that belief, kind of like a showdown of beliefs and who believes the hardest, I guess, who's a true believer. That would be kind of interesting. And then at that point we have 3 to 4 Nikas running around because we have the evil Nika over here in the drawing.
Well, and we have other problems. I mean, the Atom Tree is burning right now. And is that going to be taken as a big serious thing of like all hands on deck? We got to put this fire out. And like, how is that going to work? Like the whole island's going to be, at
least from the village side. I think the fire is, whether Loki intends it to or not, going to be the thing that makes it significantly harder to stop what the God's Knights are doing, right? I think that is, the village sees that and then they go, oh, we heard a horn blow. They're going to associate those two things together. That's the trick.
That's what I mean.
And so they're going to focus on the fire. That's where like Usopp is going to be. And Jinbei is there, which actually is pretty good. You kind of want to have a Jinbei there for a fire situation. We've seen that before. But it means that those forces are going to be split. Now, this does also mean that the Nico Robin stocks are skyrocketing, because I would love nothing more than to see Robin smack a world noble herself. But, there's even the line about Chopper going to check out the kids after we hear, hey, don't touch the kids. So I feel like Chopper even is going to get a moment to shine as a result of this kind of split forces situation, because he may have to diagnose what's going on without actually examining his patient. It's going to be a true test of his skills, so to speak.
Next, I wanted to ask you about the line. So Summers has that line, to know love is to wound someone. What do you think about this? I mean, clearly it's a pretty sick reflection of Summers' ideology, but what is it telling you?
It's kind of out of place, isn't it? It's weird that he brings it up in this context. Like he's being poetic, but what is he referring to? Is he referring to like the love that the country has for its children? Is it a national pride? Like what does he talk? What is the love he's referring to here?
I think it's him justifying his cruelty as necessary and even compassionate in a way. That's one way to look at it. It's this idea that love is inherently dangerous. Emotional vulnerability is a weakness. To love is to wound someone in either direction. So it's either to sacrifice, either you're going to be hurt, you're the someone wounded, or you're going to be hurting them, because in order to do what's best for them, you have to control them, you have to manipulate them. So even like these terrible things in his warped mind are acts of love. That's one way.
Like a parent.
Yeah, like a parent, tough love. But also in this specific moment, we're seeing how something like an emotion can hurt somebody in the same breath that your fear is literally becoming solid and coming back to hurt you. So again, coming from a celestial dragon, somebody steeped in this like dark world of yokai nonsense, the idea of like, oh yeah, you can just think something and it can turn into this dangerous weapon. That to me is so interesting because that tells me this is something that's commonplace enough that these Holy Knights shrug it off. And that's what makes them truly dangerous. That's what separates them completely from other One Piece villains we've had to deal with in the past. I say we, you and me and the Straw Hats, right?
Oh, yeah, exactly. Sailing with the rookies. Okay, I see. I think I see what you're saying here, where we've got these characters who have not necessarily like Germa, for example, which have been like had emotion bred out of them, but something higher where they've either excised it from themselves or have such a grasp on it that it's become a weapon for them rather than the thing that makes them human. I mean, maybe this means that this power isn't centered on fear, but rather emotion in general, and it can manifest all kinds of things. Maybe it can manifest like lost love or something.
Yeah.
I mean, if so, Sanji's cooked.
Exactly. But that's that's the thing is like Sanji's passion has literally manifested as fire. You and I have talked about that a bunch. It's like his passion burns so hot, it manifests itself. And this keeps happening over and over again. But I think bottom line, however you take this, I think now that we're starting to peek into like the psychological, like the psyche of these Holy Knights, I'm definitely happy that Oda is trying something a little different with them. He's really thinking about how warped these people really are and should be. Because up until now, like we've seen, like the Celestial Dragons have been very caricature. They've been very cartoonish, even down to like the sympathetic ones, like, Doflamingo's parents. Like they were basically like voted for Barack Obama 3 times if they could kind of characters. And there wasn't that much to them. It was just like a tragic story. But here we're starting to get into like the upper ranks, right? We're getting the Holy Knights. We're getting these people who are not just celestial dragons, but like they're straight up, like they're in the know. Like the fact that Gunko knows who Nika is tells me that like there is like a layer of like hierarchy. Like you get to a certain point, like sure, you're not going to know everything about the Void Century most likely, but you are going to know certain things that the rest of the world is not allowed to know. People aren't supposed to know about and talk about Nika. She brings it up just boom out of nowhere like that, right? So the idea that like these Holy Knights, like their mindsets are shaped by all this cultural mysticism and psychological warfare that I think could be really, really interesting the more we dig into it, especially when you bring Shanks into things too, because he was apparently in the loop at one point.
Yeah, it really does feel like the thing that makes them Holy Knights is not being celestial dragons, but rather their direct reporting to either Emu or his agenda. Their agenda, I should say.
Exactly. I guess we go to the comments. I mean, this isn't one of those juicy chapters where we're just gushing the entire time, just most of the time. But somebody, Snurk716 commented, Gunko is a lily. We're really going to do this, people. I got to roll up my sleeves. Gosh dang it. Gunko is a lily. Yeah, you're right. There's no counter to that. Rimia wrote, so she hates Luffy or Nika or both? I'm going to say both, but basically Nika, right? But well, to be fair, she's going to know that Luffy is basically like a manifestation of Nika because of his wanted poster. But also the Holy Knights, I have to imagine, have been debriefed on all this stuff since Wano.
Yeah, see, that's the question, because they still, like, when they first arrived, we thought that they were maybe chasing the Straw Hats, and it kind of seems like they don't even know that they're there. So that is interesting to me.
Yeah. Alizi wrote, the one who blew the horn could represent in Norse mythology when Heimdall blew the Galar horn, which starts Ragnarok. Yeah, great point. We kind of touched on the Ragnarok stuff, but we are, rewatch Thor Ragnarok, I guess, if you really want a refresher. But don't really do that. But I like that movie fine. But, but no, the idea of like the Atom Tree burning, the whole concept of like Thor Ragnarok was like burn down this, oppressive empire. And, this is all about like the people of that place, not really the location itself. Could we see the destruction of Elbaf? It wasn't just Fishman Island that Luffy's supposed to destroy.
Yeah,
but I guess Loki.
I mean, it really does. It really does feel like Luffy kind of. It really does feel like Luffy kind of messed up here, which is not something we've really seen before.
Yeah, where he
and obviously I think it's going to work out, but
he didn't
like right
free.
Now,
wait, what's the part you really think that he messed up though?
Just letting it get this far. because I mean, Zoro would never have done this without Luffy's order, right? Nobody really stopped Luffy at all. No one responsible whatsoever. And like at this point, you can at least say that like Luffy and Zoro are responsible for this fire. You can make that assessment.
But wait, didn't Loki free himself? Like, what did Luffy really do though?
No, Zoro undid the cuffs. Zoro undid the cuffs.
Did I just memory hold that?
Yeah.
Great.
Zoro was doing it in the background while he was saving them coming down to stop them. So, and that's why Zoro's like, it's a little too late for that. So, but again, Zoro also is the one that's like, okay, we don't totally let him out. Okay, we're gonna mostly let him out.
Now I remember. Yeah. I just totally memory hold that. Honestly, wow.
And
for some reason, I thought Loki just did it himself.
Yeah, no, it's. I mean, he got up on his own, which was not what anybody expected to happen, but he did because he was kind of playing it up so that they would let him out. And now, we at least have some cause and effect from that, right? And this has happened before. I'm not saying that like, oh, Luffy's completely destroyed Elbaf and it's his fault. We've only just begun really the meat of this arc now. But this is kind of the first time where like even Luffy is kind of like, in his reactions, like, oh, this is not good. And I find that very interesting.
Cypher J wrote, there's still the question of who the traitor is that summoned Shamrock and Gunko through the Demon Circle in the palace. I think we'll get the answer to this question in the next half dozen chapters. I think we're still of the mind that it was King Harold and it's been there for a while and they just kind of came through. If there had to be somebody who kind of let them through at some point, I guess Ja Rule would be like the main the main suspect, I guess. But I don't know if it's good. I think that'll be the reveal, is that the King Harold was, in cahoots with the world government this whole time. And they just needed Shanks off the island to do something.
Yeah, it still feels like that's the way that we're going. They seem very friendly with him.
Wiki Wizard wrote, so many people think that kid who drew his mom is Charlotte. So it's Charlotte Linland. I mean, that makes no sense. So I went and checked. Pew Pieces spoilers mentioned the one drawing that looked like Big Mom. It does kind of. So that's why people think it actually is her. People made connections before reading the chapter as usual. I think it could be her. I mean, I don't think we have to read that much into it. Big Mom is one of the 4 emperors, and one of these giant kids probably knows who she is. She has a bounty poster. I buy that.
Yeah, but the kid does say my mom. Like it's just his mom because it's a kid. Oda draws 3 women.
It's like my mom's Big Mom, and they're just dumb.
No, Oda draws 3 women. And to be fair, that's one more body type than he used to draw. So that's good. We're moving in a progressive direction in the most literal sense. But like, of course. Yeah. Even Alvida, he almost immediately traded her into the normal One Piece woman model. Like, he's the GOAT, but he's not perfect. So no, it looks like Big Mom because it's a mom, and so she's gonna look like a mom, and so
Oda thinks moms are scary. They make you do homework, and so he makes them look, Straw Hat Luffy 7 said there's. Oh, go ahead.
No, I was just agreeing with you.
Straw Hat Luffy 7 said, there is so much going on. I'm thinking Killingham is the one who put the kids to sleep. It has to be an ability of whatever mythical creature his Zoan fruit, devil fruit is. The fears becoming manifest could also be him, but it might be Summers and their powers just have synergy. But why are they trying to take the kids? Are the manifested fears an actual threat? Then you have Loki going crazy, swinging the lightning hammer, Ragnir, Mjolnir around. What the hell is going to happen next? Save us, Usopp. I'm with them, Travis. We need Usopp to save us.
Yeah, he's got to sober up real quick. Or liquid courage.
That's
a possibility. Yeah, drunken fist Usopp. Yeah, he's been drinking. Maybe he doesn't have to sober up. I do want to talk about, they're like, I think Killingham did this. And sometimes the staging on scenes like this is really hard to figure out. There's not a lot of choreography. Yeah. And I think in situations like this, it's on purpose. But I do think that it does make reading the panels from panel to panel a little difficult. And it requires like second or third checks, right? So that's just, sometimes that's annoying.
Yeah, I agree. Pikeman said, who will freak out more when Luffy goes Gear 5, Loki or Gunko? That's a good question. But I could see Luffy going Gear 5 here pretty soon because, obviously he doesn't want things to get too much crazier, right?
Yeah. Yeah, he's gonna try to set it right. If I'm right and he does feel responsible, and I think that he will, he's gonna try to set it right. He's not just gonna leave. So yeah, Gear Fifth seems very plausible. I don't think that like like these things are not going to overlap right away. I don't think Gunko like in like a few chapters is going to see Luffy as Nika. I think she's going to see Bonnie as Nika, or she's even going to see like the evil Nika, and like that's going to trigger a flashback or something. I don't know, but like we're up to like 4 Nikas running around right now, so there's going to be a couple of Nikas.
Yes. I'm down for all the Nikas. 10, 15, 27.
Oops all Nikas.
Let's see here. Yeah, I'm seeing lots of Big Mom comments. Kenshin Goku wrote, man, Loki is literally a giant among giants. I thought when Zoro mentioned it last chapter was an exaggeration, but this guy is really huge. It makes you wonder how Shanks was able to take him down and chain him up. I mean, I would guess the giants chained him up, but why in blue hell would you keep his weapon right next to him? Yeah, it's a huge weapon, but come on, it shouldn't be impossible to move unless maybe you have to be worthy of holding and using that weapon like Thor's hammer. Why didn't we mention that last time? Yeah, that's
well,
right.
Did we mention that? I don't think we did. We talked about
the summoning
being
thing.
Like Thor's hammer. Well, we talked about him not necessarily like maybe you can't take it from him. Like we didn't literally say like nobody could lift it, but like we talked about like why didn't they collect this from him? There's a reason for that. Maybe it literally is too big to move. Which begs the question of how Shanks did it, but that's neither here nor there right now. But if it's a Zoa and Devil Fruit connected to it, maybe it has a will of its own and it's decided it likes him for some reason. Loki's friends to the other animals in the underworld. Maybe he literally can just keep calling it to himself. Maybe it is the manifestation of his Devil Fruit power. There's a bunch of different things that we do not know about this thing, but it has a name, so it matters.
In terms of his size and how Shanks was able to take him down, I mean, just the taking him down part, we've established plenty of times that, regular sized characters, they can take down giants. Luffy was able to take down Hajruden back in Dressrosa, right? That was way before he was anywhere close to Shanks' level. So, yeah, I don't think that that's too wild to imagine. Comes down to typical One Piece power scaling logic, which in and of itself is an enigma among many. Snickersnack wrote, I was wondering why Elbaf people didn't take away Ragnar from Loki when they tied him up. With the size of that weapon, it seems Loki is the only one who can carry it. Yeah, so another person believing in this theory, yes. Kind of disappointed that future sight observation hockey is absent here. Otherwise, Luffy should have a sneak peek of events. Yeah, but he can't look that far ahead, right? Like, he's not Shanks. He's still not going to be like where Katakuri was. So I think he can only look a little bit ahead at this point still.
Yeah, and let's be honest here. It's not like Luffy is constantly operating 5 seconds ahead of everything, right? It's not like, from now on, he's just 5 seconds ahead of everything, right? Because, for one, we wouldn't be at Gear 5th if that were true. Guernica had to get the drop on him. That had to be something he couldn't see coming. It's a skill that you use. And up until about 30 seconds ago, Luffy was convinced that this guy was not going to do anything, so he's not using it. Now he might be, but he wasn't before. He thought he was good.
There's also the fact, and this applies to Guernica too, just because you can see what's happening or what's about to happen doesn't mean you have the time and speed to do anything about it. So like with Guernica, like maybe he did see it coming like a couple seconds early, but that train was already leaving the station. Like he would have been able to dodge it or do whatever.
Yeah. But that's also true. That could be a part of why Shanks is so powerful, is because it can see far enough to make that more feasible, and he's strong enough to. But in any case, like the reason is obvious, because frankly speaking, that would kind of ruin Luffy if he could just, I saw that. Like, he's not Batman.
I can't wait to see like the story like in between him losing his arm and him becoming an emperor, and all the pieces that lead us to like where he gets, because we already see the contours of that story. His reunion with Mihawk, going to the Holy Land, and all the stuff that he does in the New World to become an emperor. I mean, it's going to be wild once we get to that.
Yeah, imagine how good the fight with Loki probably was, and we will never be allowed to see it.
Allowed. All right, Ignitia wrote, the children falling asleep and the nightmare monsters could definitely be from a single devil fruit, namely something like a dream-related power, but the knight's words about their game also says differently. So who knows at the moment? Loki's Ragnir could definitely be an allusion to Mjolnir. Yeah. So I'm seeing a lot of comments kind of around this same line. There's not a ton of difference.
One thing on that comment, you can very clearly see Gunko's arrow. You remember what I said about choreography and staging in scenes like this where it's chaos? You can see her arrow. So someone's put them to sleep, and then she is using the arrow to direct them towards the ship.
Yeah.
But this is a great example of synergy, which is not something that we see in a lot of One Piece antagonists, right?
Yeah.
Like they're fighting as a unit.
Like they know each other. They know each other's powers. I think they're also kind of just like toying. They're not taking this super seriously. They don't have to yet. Yeah. Just kidnapping children. That's just a game to them. Cypher J wrote, "Wow, great chapter. Looks like one of the God's Knights has some weird version of Conjuro's power, and perhaps Jola's also. As far as Loki being able to move about, they did state in this chapter that the cliff he was chained to was also sea stone, which basically implies that someone that size is not affected that much by simple sea stone and required chains, shackles, and a sea stone wall to restrain him. I don't remember this being established, but okay. I expect Nami with her weather tack to help with the fire. She can create rain clouds without lightning, and also Jinbei with the water control jutsus will help deal with the atom fire while the other Straw Hats and Giants take on the God's Knights." Yeah, it makes sense because they're kind of like in the right position to do stuff like that. So I could see that, Straw Hats mobilizing to solve a climate crisis. Could they come to our planet and do the same, please?
Yeah, could they come to our planet and solve a few things? About the Loki cliff thing, wasn't he chained to the tree?
That's what I thought, yeah.
I want to say he was chained to the tree.
I don't remember anything about a sea stone wall.
That would be a lot of sea stone. No, hang on. I'm looking. I'm going back. I'm looking. It was in 130 that he was. It's the tree. It's the tree. I'm looking at it.
I think
Page 13 and 130. Yeah, he's chained to that tree.
Okay.
Which would be why he can't get out.
Yeah. Okay. Black Knight Halberd 42, long comment here. Saul with the hockey punch from the top rope was so unexpected but awesome. Vice Admirals do so little, it's easy to forget how badass they're supposed to be, or that Saul was one. Robin and Chopper riding in his beard is adorable. We've a chance for two normally non-combatant Straw Hats with their own big modes to have a kaiju brawl. Let's go. There you go. Yeah. Let's do some kaiju stuff.
The stocks are going up.
Yeah.
They're going up. I'm just saying.
They also wrote, Loki's the real deal. Just being able to stand up is impressive right now, but shaking the tree with one swing is unreal. Either the hammer has its own devil fruit, it's made of some crazy material that summons lightning when it's struck. We have prisms that make solid rainbows. I believe a magic lightning metal. Or Loki is so busted he can just muscle through sea stone to use his devil fruit anyway. He's going to be a demon when that cuff comes off. Oh yeah, 100%. Guessing the Pied Piper sleep is Kieranham's power since he's always falling asleep himself. If the nightmare creatures are his doing too, then his fruit is one of the craziest yet. This kind of dream manipulation is enough to be a good fruit on its own, but he gets a dang mythic awakening for him too. It'd be scarier if Summers doesn't have a fruit at this point, because imagine how dangerous he'd have to be equivalent to these guys. Gunko's fear being Nika could have a lot of meanings. Most obvious is Nika is the antithesis of the world noble's authority and represents everything that could bring them low. But if some theorists are right, and she wasn't originally a nobler born knight, but joined them for some reason, it could be Nika represents everything she gave up on, and having it confirmed that Nika could exist would mean she sold her soul for nothing, metaphorically. Oh, I really like that. And lastly, love that this dark Nika has a flaming beard as well as hair. I love seeing different ideas of what Nika looks like, since apart from a few motifs and a white color scheme, he should be able to look like anything. Great comment.
Yeah, that's really thoughtful. And yeah, I saw the beard too, and I thought that was fun because of course he would. Everyone in Elbaf has a beard, right? That's perfect.
Even the tree has beards, the branches. Last comment here is from Hero to Anime. The way the Fenrir wolf looks is a weird mix of the sky wolves and the wolf scene in Mika's Lollipop music video. So random. And look, we got Nightmare Nika as a Cyclops. To think the God's Knights are capable of using their hockey to knock out the children, a la sniper style. Okay, so Kieranham is obviously the one who knocked out the kids like that. Gunko's using her devil fruit to make the kids sleepwalk, so that means these creations are likely from our third guy. Definitely Paramecia type, but powerful on the level like Big Mom's Soul fruit and Gecko Moria's Shadow fruit. And looks like Chopper and Robin will fight the God's Knights first. I don't know if they're going to fight the Gods Knights. I think, like the other person said, they're going to end up fighting like the, you know.
Yeah, it's going to be the fears.
The first. Manifestations.
They still don't know that.
Yeah.
They still have no idea what's going on. You know, they will eventually, I think, force the issue for the Gods Knights to reveal themselves, and that's when things get really spicy. But for now, it's, you know, let's go fight. It's kind of funny. We're going to have 2 Loki fights happening at the same time.
Yeah. Oh, wait, we do have one more comment. Sorry. Toolman2469 wrote, "Oh, we have someone who can bring your fears to life? Usopp, you're up." Yes, please. Right away. Travis, I mentioned Usopp and you didn't immediately.
I'm thinking on just how ridiculous of a concept that is, because that's like a Perona level check, right? Like you can, like, your powers don't work on me because I am already depressed levels of you can't scare me. Or even crazier, it does work. All of Usopp's like hyperbolic fears and diseases come out, and the giants of Elbaf like see how brave he is by like, oh, this man still fights and still goes out in the sea and he's terrified of everything. He is the conqueror of all, like some sort of like accidentally like tricks the giants into thinking that he's overcome all these fears or something. That would be incredible. I'm just like thinking about it now of like the situation where another giant lifts him up and he's like, no, don't do this again, please.
I love
like
that.
We
so
just
much.
redo the God Usopp stuff.
His buggy moment.
Oh yeah, that's exactly what it is. It's just buggying into it.
Yeah. All right, well, that's a good note to end this week's recap. Thanks so much for listening. I think we have a break coming up, right?
It is a break. It's a break.
Yeah,
my one fear.
I don't see on the. Yeah, yeah, that's what Travis is most afraid of. But hey, we might have some room to do something this next week. We'll let you all know if that is the case. Lots of stuff coming out right now. Stuff that's good, stuff that could be better. You know how it is. But for now, we will see you all in the next episode of Bricky Pirate Radio. Thanks so much for listening. We'll sail with you again next time.